I didn't realize assistants were invited to executive dinners now. Olivia Pierce said it lightly. The way people say things they mean but want to be able to take back. A few people laughed. Not loudly. Just enough. Kendra Blake set her glass down. Slowly. She looked up calm, but sharp. The kind of calm that isn't peace. The kind that's a choice. That's interesting. A beat. I didn't realize titles were required for basic respect. The laughter stopped. The table shifted not physically, but in the way a room shifts when something changes and everyone feels it before they can name it. Olivia's smile stayed in place, but it tightened. Kendra held her gaze for exactly 1 second longer than necessary. Then she looked away, reached for the menu. Unbothered. She'd been in rooms like this before. She just hadn't always been invited to them. The tension didn't leave. It just settled low and waiting. Then the door opened. It wasn't loud. It wasn't dramatic. But the people closest to the entrance noticed first. A straightening of spines. Smiles that appeared from nowhere. The particular alertness of people who suddenly remembered they were being observed. Boss. Good evening, sir. Kendra didn't turn around immediately. She heard the shift before she saw it. Then she looked. Kim Woo-jin walked in the way he did everything, like the room had already arranged itself around him before he arrived. Conversations didn't stop. They corrected themselves. He scanned the table once. And for just a moment, brief, almost nothing, his eyes landed on her. Then moved to the people around her. He'd caught enough. He always caught enough. And just like that, the room changed. But not in the way they expected. Some rooms are designed to put people in their place. This one was about to find out it picked the wrong woman. Stay with me, because what happens next inside that dinner, and after it, is the part nobody saw coming. Make sure you're subscribed. And keep watching. 3 weeks earlier, Kendra hadn't been thinking about dinner invitations. She'd been thinking about the quarterly projections that weren't adding up, the vendor contract that needed renegotiating before Friday, and the fact that the 11 o'clock meeting was about to go sideways. She could feel it before she walked in. The energy in the conference room was the specific kind of tense that comes from people who've already agreed on the wrong answer and are waiting for someone to confirm it. 7 people around the table. All of them watching Woo-jin at the head of it. He hadn't spoken yet. He didn't need to. The proposal was on the screen. A restructuring plan that looked clean on paper and would create 3 operational bottlenecks the moment it touched the ground. Kendra had read it at 6 that morning. She'd flagged 2 of the issues in the margin notes she sent through before 8. Nobody had addressed them. The room was waiting for approval. Woo-jin's eyes moved across the slide. Thoughts. Silence. The kind of silence that means everyone has thoughts and nobody wants to be the first. Kendra looked at the screen. Then at him. The distribution split in Phase 2 doesn't account for the regional variance in Q3, she said. If we push the timeline forward, we're building on a number that's already going to shift. Nobody moved. She felt it, the collective intake of breath that happened every time she spoke directly in these rooms. Woo-jin didn't react immediately. He looked at the slide again. Then he looked at her. Show me. She stood. Pulled up the Q3 breakdown on her tablet and walked him through it. 2 minutes, no filler, just the numbers and what they meant. When she finished, the room was still quiet. But it was a different kind of quiet now. Woo-jin leaned back slightly. Push the Phase 2 timeline, he said. We'll revisit the distribution model before we move forward. That was it. No explanation. No credit given out loud. Just the decision adjusted, clean, final. The meeting moved on. Kendra sat back down. Across the table, she could feel Olivia watching her. Not with anger. Not yet. With something that looked like calculation. After the room cleared, Kendra stayed behind to collect her things. She was sliding the tablet into her folder when she heard him. The variance flag. It was in your notes this morning. She looked up. Woo-jin was still at the head of the table. Everyone else had filed out. She hadn't noticed him stay. It was, she said. Nobody read them. Apparently not. He held her gaze for a moment. There was something in it she couldn't fully name, not approval exactly. Something more specific. Something that felt less like a boss acknowledging good work and more like a person acknowledging another person. "They will next time," he said. Then he picked up his phone. But he didn't walk out immediately. He looked at her once more, brief, almost nothing. Then he left. Kendra stood there a second longer than she needed to. She filed it under nothing, picked up her folder, and walked out after him. It started quietly, the way most things between them did. A week after the meeting, he asked her to stay late to work through a contract revision. That wasn't unusual. She'd done it before. What was unusual was that when the work was finished, he didn't immediately stand and signal the end of the evening. He stayed at the table, poured water for them both without asking, and said, almost to himself, "You grew up in Atlanta." She looked up. "How do you know that?" "Your emergency contact form. When you were on board." She studied him. "You read employee onboarding forms?" "I read yours." She didn't know what to do with that. So she said nothing for a moment. Then yes, Atlanta. "Why?" He looked at her directly. "I spent 6 months there. Years ago. Before all of this." Something in the way he said it, "before all of this," made her understand he wasn't talking about the company. He was talking about the life. The weight of it. The version of himself that existed before he became the man people straightened their spines for. She understood that feeling more than she expected to. They talked for 40 minutes. Not about work. When she finally stood to leave, she paused at the door. "You could have just said goodnight," she said. He almost smiled. "I could have." She left. But she thought about it on the drive home. More than she should have. After that, things shifted. Subtly. Slowly. In ways that were easy to explain away individually and harder to dismiss together. He started stopping by her desk, not always with something specific. Sometimes with a question that could have been an email. Sometimes with nothing at all, just a brief pause before moving on. She noticed. She told herself she was reading into it. Then one Tuesday morning she arrived to find a coffee on her desk. Her order, exact. Not from the office machine. From the place 3 blocks away that she stopped at on days she needed the walk. She hadn't told anyone about that place. She looked up from her desk. He was already in his office, door half open, back to her. She stared at the cup for a long moment. Then she picked it up and said nothing. But the thing she'd been filing under nothing had started to take up more space. The office noticed before she was ready to. It started as glances, the kind exchanged over the tops of monitors when he walked past her desk and slowed down. Then it became whispers. Then it became the kind of open commentary that people deliver just loud enough to be heard. "There's something going on there. You think she's. I mean, he doesn't stop at anyone else's desk. Maybe she's just good at her job." "Nobody's that good." Kendra heard it. She didn't respond. But it settled in her uncomfortably. The suggestion that whatever was happening existed because of her. That she'd positioned herself. That the coffee and the late nights and the conversations that went longer than they needed to were somehow a strategy she was running rather than something happening to her the same way it was happening to him. She didn't like how much it made her doubt. It was a Thursday evening when she finally said something. She'd stayed late again. The floor was mostly empty. He'd come past her desk on his way out and stopped the way he did now, like it was a natural part of the route. "You should go home," he said. "It's late. I'm finishing the brief. It can wait until morning." She looked up at him. "Can I ask you something?" He waited. "What is this?" He didn't pretend not to understand. He looked at her for a moment, considering. The way he considered things before he said them. "What do you think it is?" he said. "I think," she said carefully, "that you stop at my desk more than anyone else's. I think you know my coffee order. I think you stayed in that conference room 3 weeks ago for a reason that had nothing to do with the contract." He said nothing. "And I think," she continued, "that if I'm wrong about what I think it means, I'd rather know now." The floor hummed quietly around them. Wu Jin looked at her. "You're not wrong," he said. Simple. Direct. No performance. She held his gaze. "Okay," she said. "Okay," he repeated. And that was how it started. Not with a grand gesture. Not with a declaration. Just two people who'd been circling something honest finally deciding to stop pretending they weren't. They kept it quiet. Not because either of them was ashamed, but because it was theirs. New and careful and not yet ready for the weight of other people's opinions. They had dinner the following Saturday. Not the office kind. A small place he knew on the east side, low-lit, unhurried. They talked for 3 hours. She laughed more than she expected to. So did he, and she got the sense that didn't happen often. After that there were more evenings. Walks that didn't need a destination. Conversations that started about work and ended somewhere much more personal. He learned how she took her tea. She learned that he cooked badly, but earnestly, which she found disproportionately endearing. She learned other things too. That the controlled, unreadable quality he carried in every boardroom wasn't armor exactly. It was just how he processed the world. Quietly. Thoroughly. And that once he let someone past it, his attention was total. She felt that attention. Every day. In ways that were small enough to be dismissed and consistent enough that they couldn't be. She stopped dismissing them. The office didn't know. But the office suspected. And Olivia Pierce, who watched everything and said nothing until she had enough, had been watching for weeks. She saw the coffee. She saw the desk stops. She saw the way he listened when Kendra spoke in rooms where he didn't listen to anyone else. She told herself it was inappropriate. She told herself it was favoritism. She told herself a lot of things that made the watching feel justified. What she didn't tell herself, because some things are harder to admit than others, was that what actually bothered her was simpler than all of that. She just couldn't figure out how Kendra Blake had walked into that office and become someone Kim Woo-jin looked at like that. Without trying. Without performing. Without doing any of the things Olivia had spent years learning to do. It didn't make sense to her. So she decided the dinner would make sense. A room full of the right people would show exactly where the lines were. Or so she thought. The night of the dinner, Kendra arrived 4 minutes early. She checked her coat, straightened her shoulders, walked in. The restaurant was already warm with conversation, the kind that carries the low hum of people comfortable with their own importance. She found her seat, near the middle of the table, positioned just enough apart from the natural clusters that she would have to work to be included in any conversation. She noticed. She sat down anyway. The first 20 minutes were unremarkable. Small talk she participated in selectively. A comment here, a question there. Nothing that announced itself. Olivia was 3 seats down. Watching, but keeping her distance. Letting the room warm up first. Then she spoke. I didn't realize assistants were invited to executive dinners now. Laughter from 2 people. A third who looked at their plate. Kendra set her glass down slowly. That's interesting. She looked up. I didn't realize titles were required to earn basic respect. The laughter died. The table shifted. Olivia's smile stayed but tightened, pulled at the edges like something held by effort instead of ease. Kendra looked away first. Not in retreat. In disinterest. Which landed worse. The conversation resumed carefully, cautiously. But the shape of it had changed. Something had been introduced into the room that hadn't been there before. Olivia felt it. And instead of letting it go, she pushed. You must be very observant, Kendra said at one point, in response to a pointed remark about overstepping for someone who keeps missing the point. A man at the far end of the table covered something that wasn't quite a laugh. Olivia reached for her wine. Set it back down. You should be grateful you're even here. The table went still. Kendra didn't rush. She leaned back slightly, not away, just into herself. Like she was getting comfortable. Grateful, she said. A beat. No. Another beat. Invited? Yes. She let it land. There's a difference. The weight of it settled into the room and didn't move. And then, there is. One voice. Quiet. Certain. Absolute. Everyone turned. Woo-jin had been seated at the head of the table. Kendra had registered his arrival when the room straightened, but she hadn't looked at him directly. Hadn't let herself. Now every eye was on him. He wasn't looking at the table. He was looking at Olivia. And you seem to be confusing both. The silence that followed had edges. Olivia opened her mouth. Oh no, sir, we were just... I heard enough. She closed her mouth. Someone picked up a fork and put it back down without using it. Woo-jin stood. Not with anger. Not with any visible heat. Just stood the way a man stands when he's already decided something and the motion is just the physical expression of it. He walked toward her end of the table. Kendra watched him come. He stopped beside her chair and placed one hand lightly grounding on the back of it. The table was completely still. He looked out at all of them. And when he spoke, his voice carried the same temperature it always did. Let me make something clear. A pause. She's not just my assistant. Longer pause. She's the woman I'm going to marry. Total silence. Somewhere in it, Kendra felt the air move through her differently. Not a shock, she knew him well enough now to know he didn't say things he didn't mean. But the weight of it. The public, irreversible, deliberate weight of it. He'd chosen her out loud. In front of every person in this room. Around the table, the faces told their own story. Shock. The particular stillness of people realizing, too late, the exact size of the mistake they'd been making. Olivia Pierce stared at the tablecloth. She said nothing. There was nothing left to say. And in a single moment, the woman they tried to reduce became the only one who mattered in the room. They left together. Not as a statement. He simply fell into step beside her at the door, and the night air met them both cool, quiet, a sharp contrast to everything they'd walked out of. The street was calm. No audience. No performance required. Kendra exhaled slowly. They walked without speaking, the comfortable kind of silence between two people who've learned each other's rhythms without meaning to. Then she spoke. You didn't have to step in. Yes, I did. She glanced at him. I was handling it. I know. A beat. I'm not going to stand there while someone disrespects you. No debate in his voice. No room for argument. Not a position he'd arrived at tonight, something settled long before this. Kendra looked ahead. The city moved around them. Distant traffic. The low wash of streetlights. Their footsteps on the pavement. You called me the woman you are going to marry, she said quietly. I did. In front of your entire executive team. Yes. She let that sit. He let her. Then I should have made things clear a long time ago. Kendra stopped walking. He took one more step. Then stopped too. Turned to face her. She was looking at him, and for the first time all night, something in her expression had shifted. The composure was still there. But underneath it, something else was moving. Woojin. He waited. She looked at him for a long moment. Then she said it. It wouldn't have mattered. Something behind his eyes changed. What do you mean? She exhaled once. I was going to resign. The words landed in the quiet like something dropped from height. He went still. Not the controlled stillness of boardrooms, something different. The stillness of a man who'd just heard something he hadn't prepared for. After tonight, she said. I wasn't staying. He said nothing. I had the letter ready. I was going to submit it on Monday. Why? Not a question. A word pressed against a door. She met his eyes. Because I didn't think I belonged here. And I'm not interested in staying where I have to keep proving I do. Quiet. She'd been carrying it longer than she'd admitted to herself. The looks. The whispers. The persistent, low-frequency message that she was present on borrowed terms. That her seat at every table had conditions attached that no one had told her about. Tonight had just been the loudest version of something she'd been hearing for months. I'm good at my job, she said. I know that. But there's a difference between being good at something and belonging somewhere. She paused. And I wasn't sure anymore. Woojin looked at her. Really looked at her. And when he spoke, his voice had lost its usual even quality. Not in volume. In temperature. Something warmer underneath. You were going to leave. Yes. Without telling me. She almost smiled. Not quite. What would I have said? He stepped closer. Deliberately. Unhurried. The truth, he said. What you just told me. She looked up at him. Would it have changed anything? Yes. One word. No hesitation. No performance. Just yes, carrying the full weight of every moment he hadn't named out loud. Every morning he'd noticed she looked tired. Every time he'd adjusted something quietly so she didn't have to ask. Every conversation that ran longer than it needed to because neither of them wanted it to end. He should have said something sooner. He knew that now in a way that moved through him like cold water. He reached into the inside pocket of his jacket. Kendra watched. She saw the box before he opened it. Small. Dark. No announcement. Her breath caught. He opened it. The ring caught the streetlight, simple, precise. Exactly the kind of thing she would have chosen herself if anyone had ever thought to ask. He hadn't asked. But somehow he'd known anyway. He looked at her. You don't belong in rooms that question your place. Soft pause. You belong with me. The street held still around them. So don't leave. His voice dropped. Stay. A beat. Marry me. Kendra looked at him. At the ring. At him again. The guard she'd held all night, through every jab, every sideways glance, every moment in that room where she'd had to hold herself together by choice, came down. Not all at once. Just enough. Her eyes filled. She didn't try to stop it. She exhaled long, slow, like something she'd been holding since long before tonight finally had somewhere to go. And she nodded. He slid the ring onto her finger. His hand stayed wrapped around hers. Warm. Steady. Unhurried. She looked down at it. Then up at him. And for the first time that night, she didn't have to prove anything. She was never the one who needed to prove anything. She was the one he chose. If this story moved you, you're in the right place. Like the video and subscribe. And tell me something. Whose reaction at that dinner table would you have wanted to see most? Drop it in the comments. Thanks for watching. See you in the next story.